Jack.
Levi.
The Book Club from Hell.
Hello everyone, this is Jack with the Book Club from Hell, a sentient camera lens used by operatives of Ben & Jerry's Homemade Holdings Incorporated to collect compromat on commercial competitors. This week's episode is on Triumph of the Will, an influential Nazi propaganda film directed, produced, edited and co-written by Leni Riefenstahl, released in 1935. The film documents the 1934 Sixth Nazi Party Congress in Nuremberg, and to this day is still highly regarded from a technical perspective, as Riefenstahl used a number of innovative filmmaking techniques which I don't really understand, as I'm a complete caveman when it comes to film. If you like what we're doing with this podcast and want to support us, we have a Patreon account, the link to which is in the show notes. People on Patreon can access the notes I make for episodes, as long as that episode warrants coherent notes, so if you want more information on the books or manifestos we've covered, you can find it there. Additionally, I've published a novel called Tower, which you can find on Amazon or on Apple Books, links also in the show notes. So, if you want to understand how narrative can be driven by a series of progressively larger swastikas in film, then listen on. Enjoy.
No, that's quite all right. Listeners, you now know, or you're about to know, about to learn that I have a child, and I was with that child, rocking him to sleep as I was watching the last 40 minutes or so of Triumph of the Will, Leni Riefenstahl's 35 classic piece of cinematic propaganda.
Yeah, let's see. So it was recording the 34 Nazi Party Congress in Nuremberg. I'm not sure when it was. Oh, here we go. Yeah, released 1935.
Yeah, 1935.
We watched the 1080p colorized edition as well. You'd see the rosiness of Hitler's cheeks.
Yeah, that was really good.
The rosiness
because
of all of the seraphic cheeks of the Aryan children waving and hiling at Hitler's motorcades.
I was really pleased for the colorized edition because maybe last time I watched it, it was really grainy and it was in black and white, so I wasn't able to absorb the full sort of cinematic mastery of it. But this time I was I Chromecast it onto my very large television and was watching it in all its splendor. And it was really, it really made a big difference. I think my favorite part, I mean, it makes a big difference because so many shots have this really sort of like languid obsession over bodily movements. Like I really liked, there was this particular scene at the Hitler youth camp where one of the cooks or something was sort of like slowly pulling out some stew and then pouring it back in. And it was really, I don't know, it was really special.
Mm-hmm.
Plus also just being able to observe all of Hitler's tics. Like, did you see
his
like
mannerisms?
Yeah, like I'm not sure, there's this particular bit where like he gets like, he does this ridiculous dance. He's like, it's, I don't know. Like it's his hands on hips posture, which is really ridiculous.
It's also interesting analysing the different ways that different people heil because like it's an identifiable movement, of course, but within the genus of heiling, there's quite a lot of variation. There are a lot of species.
Yeah.
And
What's your favorite
Hitler's
heil?
heils, they're quite lazy. I guess he was the Fuhrer, so he didn't have to impress people to nearly the same extent as I think it was Rudolf Hess had a very, very energetic heil.
Yeah, I got to say that on the whole, if I had one criticism of the movie, I was a little bit disappointed with the flaccidity of some of the heils. Like, because you get really used to like a very sort of, rigid heil. But some of them were just being like, they were letting their fingers wag a little. They were a bit.
There was one shot in particular I remember seeing. I think it was at the end, like there were a number of speeches to close out the party congress, I think on the 6th day. And there was one particular shot of this sea of heiling hands, and one hand was just he was letting his wrist droop, his fingers were drooping. It was a naturalistic shot.
Yeah.
It was a
so they could have worked on that, but I feel like I'm not sure. I take some issue with your characterization of Hitler's heils as being lazy.
We should probably say what the Triumph of the Will is.
Yeah. Oh, we did before, didn't we? Yeah. Okay. Say what the Triumph of the Will is.
Yeah. So Leni Riefenstahl was a German filmmaker. Was she mostly a director? So I think this one she directed. I think she co-wrote I think she produced it.
Yeah, I was talking to a colleague at work today about Triumph of the Will.
Triumph of the Will.
And he was
the
saying,
famous Nazi propaganda film.
Yeah, he was telling me that, and this guy's a very avid, I think, mountain climber. And apparently she made all kinds of films on like mountain climbing. So she was very used to doing dramatic like mountainscapes and that sort of thing. I'm not sure if this was before or after her Nazi career, but I think she lived quite a while after the fall of Nazism. I don't know exactly, but I think it was like 1970 or 80 or something. So I think she must have had a pretty solid career after that, notwithstanding her contributions to the Nazi Party.
Yeah, so she made a number of propaganda films for the Nazis, most notably The Triumph of the Will, which Ed and I watched. And then after the war, there are a handful of people of Nazis post-war who were just unapologetic. Like Carl Schmitt, I'm pretty sure, just never apologized.
Yeah.
He was pretty unrepentant. Not that it hurt his standing at universities today. Not sure what Heidegger said afterwards. Leni Riefenstahl... I think he
kept pretty quiet about it, but I don't think he ever recanted.
Riefenstahl did what most did, where she said that she had no idea of what the Nazis were doing, had no idea of the Holocaust. So I think her star certainly fell after 1945, but she was very, very prominent as a filmmaker in Nazi Germany. And apparently, so I should preface all of this by saying I'm a complete Philistine when it comes to film. I rarely watch films. I might watch them on a plane. So my usual film viewing experience is watching it on like a postage stamp of a screen where I can barely hear anything because of the jet engines. And I'm sleepy, so I don't really follow the plot. But I hear that Riefenstahl was very, very innovative in terms of her cinematography. And I will say it's a very...
Yeah. No, it's an extremely beautiful film.
It's a combination of it's a very visually striking film combined with the novelty, and because Hitler is effectively Satan in our society, the shock value of just seeing Hitler appear every now and then in such a heroic capacity.
Yeah, I think
show up, deliver rousing speeches. He looks good. He's well dressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's decisive.
I think one of the most refreshing things for me is actually seeing Nazism in all of its glories shorn any of the dark outside context, because I think aside from whatever weird interests I might have, I think it is actually a useful political pedagogical tool for people to actually see why people might have been wrapped up in this whole thing. Like, imagine how that film would have been received in 1935 and how amazing it would have been cinematically. And it's just great.
Yeah, a lot of the lessons that at least it seems popular culture has drawn from Nazism, at least in Australia, is that it was just this cartoonishly... It's a cartoonishly evil and obviously cartoonishly evil thing, and was from the very beginning, and the only people who followed it were themselves cartoonishly evil.
Yes.
Whereas at least with this film, it seems like a lot of people followed it. So there was the humiliation after the First World War, which does come up like in the first few minutes of this film.
Yeah.
The German martial tradition, and also the fact that the Nazis were so effective at propagandizing and just making themselves look cool. Like their branding was so disciplined.
Yeah.
Everything has a swastika on it.
Yeah.
Everything has the right colors. Everything's very tightly choreographed. So it's a sort of movement where, like, if you had something that was that well branded and that energetic today, even if it was espousing very similar values, I imagine you get a lot of adherence.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if the numbers given in the film were correct, but I think it said something like, if 750,000 people were really at this week-long extravaganza, then having that many people, that well choreographed, with such high production values, you know, it'd be enough to turn anyone into a jackbooted goon.
It's also interesting that this didn't happen that long after the Night of the Long Knives.
I think it said 19 months or something. Was that it?
Yeah, it happened very close after. And there were a lot of, I can't remember which SA members were present in this film, but certainly a number of was it Röhm?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
was purged.
yeah. I read that, but I don't even know who he is. Yeah.
It was consigned to the dustbin of history. By the SS.
He's probably kicking himself in heaven, or maybe hell, that he wasn't
for not appearing in the Triumph of the Will.
In the Triumph of the Will. Yeah, but I think I was going to say, returning to the Heil theme, or who had the best sort of Heil salute. Oh no, I was talking about Hitler's one earlier. So one thing I liked about the way Hitler did it was he sort of had this sort of, I wouldn't say relaxed, but I would say on certain scenes he had a very composed Heil, and particularly when he did that Heil that sort of tracked across the marching troops, and then he would almost finish it off with a conductor-like flourish of the hand.
Yeah, a conductor-like flourish, and then he would hold his belt buckle.
Yeah, that's right.
And he did this several times.
Yeah. I find
he alternated between the panning shot Heil, which was normally arm parallel to the ground, or this kind of this limpid, flaccid over the shoulder, very, very weak Heil, which was much more unimpressive.
I gotta say,
I think Rudolf Hess probably had the most masculine erect Heil of any of the Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, is there a particular significance to all these different Heils? I mean, I sort of
fucking
I get the sort of tracking Heil, and I understand for practical purposes the little flap of the hand Heil. I mean, because it must get a bit tiring Heiling all day.
Do it a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but is there any? Because I kind of get the impression that Hitler thought about this kind of thing quite a lot. So I wonder if there's a deeper significance to these gestures.
There might be a deeper lore to the various types of Heils, but I'm just not enough of an expert in this. This is not a well-practiced enough movement for me to have strong feelings
no.
about the particularities of it.
I mean, I suppose we should say something about how the film unfolds. So, I mean, I think the start of the film is probably the most imagination capturing. It sort of gives you this prelude where it talks about how Germany was on its knees after World War One, how it was humiliated at the Treaty of Versailles or whatever, or in the post-war negotiations. And then, of course, the music has a bit of an uplift when it talks about the rebirth of Germany in 1933 after the Nazis took power. And then we cut to we're soaring through the camera is soaring above and through the clouds, which I suppose is meant to indicate Hitler's heavenliness or something. And it's Hitler's plane as he descends upon Nuremberg. So he sort of descends from the heavens in the first few minutes of the film into Nuremberg. And after that, there's not much in the way of, I mean, it doesn't have a plot. I guess it's a,
no.
Do you think it was marketed as a documentary?
I think it's meant to be a documentary.
Yeah.
Like notionally a documentary. It's quite hagiographic.
Quite, yes.
Yes. Especially in some of the speeches. The speeches are, everyone involved is quite partial to Hitler.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
I'd say that there are standout scenes and definite visual motifs which keep popping up.
Yeah.
It's particularly a sea of flags upon flagpoles, such that you can't see the people holding them, or a sea of outstretched right hands reaching for the heavens. Those are common visual themes.
Yeah, there was a bit of a balance struck in the crowds, in the shots of the crowds, between people on the one hand heiling, but then they're
Mm,
almost reaching out to grasp Hitler in admiration.
mm, mm.
I found that there's a bit of a tension there. But what was your favorite part of the film? Because it cycles through the various events that occurred during this week for the Nazi conference or whatever
Mm,
in
mm.
1934. My personal favorite, I think, I did like the men, whatever it was, like the workers' brigade or whatever, that were all doing sort of military maneuvers, but with shovels instead of guns.
Yeah, and the shovels had swastikas on them. It's very practical. That makes them dig better. One of the more fun parts of watching this film is just because Nazism is so taboo
Mm.
in Australia.
Yeah.
To watch something that is not only unashamedly Nazi, but is celebrating its Nazism
Yeah.
for 2 hours or so is it's pretty wild.
I didn't realize that there were actually swastikas on the shovels. So that's real attention to detail.
Oh,
Um,
there was remarkable attention to detail. I mean, they're Germans.
yeah, yeah. Did you get? I mean, did you get the impression that? Uh, and I'm trying not to be use this in a derogatory fashion, but did you get the impression from that film that Hitler was gay? No offense to gay people,
Yeah,
but I just got the impression he
yeah.
was gay.
He's just a bit effeminate in his
Yes.
mannerisms and some of his facial tics,
Hmm.
how he moves, especially when you place him next to, say, when you had like the SS officers marching past him, some very masculine men in masculine uniforms. Hitler does seem much more feminine in comparison.
Yeah, and particularly when he touches his hands to his hips after doing the Heil, and then there's one particular scene where he does a little wiggle.
The angry mum pose. He
Yes,
does a
that's
lot.
right. That's that's exactly
Hands
right.
on hips when you're 8 years old and you just threw the TV remote at your brother and made his nose bleed. Hitler mum comes in and puts her hands on her hips and tells you to stop.
Yeah, yeah. And like he must have practiced all these gestures quite a lot, because it's my impression, and I might be being unfair, but it's my impression that he was probably not someone that was at ease in the company of others.
Mm.
I mean, so I think he must have
He's
practiced all this stuff like pretty
he
religiously.
was the head of a machine that was so capable of remaining on brand and so capable of creating symbols which captured and expressed very, very strong emotions
Hmm.
that he was part of such a theatrical organization that it's hard to imagine he was unaware of these things.
I like that reimagining, or Nazism reinterpreted as a theatrical troupe. Like if they were just like performing at gay nightclubs or something in the 1980s,
Mm.
they would have been
Instead of beer halls.
very popular. So, which other scene did
You
you
were
like?
asking about favorite
Yeah,
bits.
yeah.
So there are two favorites. There's the bit I enjoyed the most and the bit I found the most impressive.
Mm.
The bit I enjoyed the most was the bit you were mentioning when they've got all of the what were they, like laborers or something, the people with the swastika shovels.
Yeah, I think they were laborers.
The bit in that where they all start singing and then start saying where they're from.
Yeah.
But so that they'll have like a close up of a soldier or worker or whatever, like a swastika shovelman's face, and he'll turn dramatically towards the camera and shout where he's from. Like
Yeah.
he'll say, "Oh, I'm from Pomerania," or "I'm from Bavaria," or "I'm from Silesia."
The Black
But
Forest.
it goes on for quite a while, and their poses are just so gay. The whole thing just feels really
The
gay.
whole thing
And
is so gay.
they're really handsome dudes as well.
Yeah.
Like big square jaws, hunter's eyes. They're really good looking. And it just feels so gay.
Yeah, Yeah, I think
that was the most fun part. That was really good.
maybe the fact that it was actually made by a woman actually helped with making it more gay. I mean, maybe she has had more of an appreciation for the male form and all its splendor.
Yeah, and then they go Turbo German, where they all start singing together,
Yeah.
and talking about planting trees and stuff like that. Just like the unrestrained Teutonic soul, just loves war and big forests.
Can you imagine if you were someone in like, I don't know, England or the United States at the time, and you watched Triumph of the Will as a contemporary? You would just like be like, man,
I would
those
find it
Germans are
terrifying.
weird. Like, what's going on in Germany?
I would think that the Germans are weird, and I would be very, very scared of them.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I think you could be forgiven for thinking they're a bit sort of silly and harmless at the beginning, because like, if it was 13 or 14 years, after 1920 or whatever, and it was pretty recent that their country had been pretty fucked up and then economically crippled by international finance. And so you'd probably just think like, oh, they're blowing off a bit of steam. Let's not take them too seriously. This Hitler's a bit of a character. But I could see people just brushing the whole thing off as a bit amusing and a bit silly.
It's hard to say, because this was after the Night of the Long Knives. Hitler had started carrying out extrajudicial executions.
At the same time, I'm not sure. Do you know how well that sort of incident was publicized in the international press?
No, I'm not sure.
like it's the history of the 20th century is people taking a long time to realize things.
No, they unfortunately didn't have the beauty of Twitter or other forms of of hyper palatable bite-sized media. Just polluting your mind with high volume shit.
Yeah.
We swung in the opposite direction. It's instead of it taking too long for things to reach us, it's just anything reaches us far too quickly.
Yeah, I
wonder what form the Triumph of the Will would take today.
I was about to say maybe one of the
short form video. Like, it couldn't be 2 hours long.
One of the great tragedies of today is that the viewing audience doesn't have the appetite or the attention span to enjoy the Triumph of the Will and all its 2 hours of splendor.
Yeah, they just can't be propagandized to in as aesthetic a way.
Yeah, because I mean, if you didn't have a telly to put on and your only entertainment for the night was just to hop in the car with, mum and the kids and go watch Triumph of the Will for 2 hours, like that would have been a very, very impressive thing to behold. Like, what if you were seeing it projected on a screen or something? Like, with all your fellow Germans, this thing was real and fresh and exciting to you. It would be magical. I mean, I think in terms of favorite scenes, I'm not sure why. I think maybe because it reminded me a bit of school camp. I really liked the Hitler Youth thing.
Yeah, it's like you got together with all of the other Aryan boys and you just did a lot of stuff together shirtless.
Yeah. There was a lot of roughhousing, shirtless roughhousing with the boys.
Roughhousing with beautiful blonde boys.
Yeah, it's a very gay film.
It's like when I look at it again, I can't help but think, oh, that's kind of gay. But that might also just be my poisoned mind that sees any sort of male affection and immediately assumes that there's a romantic subtext.
Yeah,
it could just be that men were much more comfortable being affectionate towards one another, even like 80, 90 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Perhaps we're in the wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're wrong about that, Jack, you might want to rethink some of your other assumptions about viewing this film.
I got to say, though, this film did make being in Hitler Youth look really fun.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like the food looked good.
It's a propaganda film. It's meant to cast this in a good light.
Yeah.
That did look like a lot of fun.
Like, it's a big camp. You've got all these, like, I don't know, teepees or tents or whatever they are set up just for, like, mile upon mile upon mile. And then you've got
aerial shots of them.
Yeah.
It's going forever.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And then, like, you see, like, some of the kids are, like, helping to prepare dinner or they've got like lots of sausages over their shoulders. Sausages again, another gay motif. What do you think was the gayest part of the film? Do you reckon that's a gay? Do you reckon the men with shovels, the Hitler Youth, or is there another gay bit that I'm really not remembering?
As you earlier mentioned, Hitler's mannerisms are very gay. So most times when he's delivering speeches, there's kind of like there's Hitler when he's not being self-conscious and the gay mannerisms come out. The hands on the hips, 2 hands on the hips, or even more potently, 1 hand on the hip and the other hand gesticulating. One hip kind of knocked out to the side as well.
But okay,
show off his luscious yams.
Okay, I've got a question. Like, because as I was watching it,
then when he starts speaking, he must be concentrating and trying to suppress those mannerisms. But then when he gets really excited and starts shouting, then the mannerisms reemerge.
Yeah, the hands come up in very sort of drama school fashion.
Yeah, when the id finally smashes through the superego and Hitler's true self arises once more. So those moments when he's at his apex are very gay, and the moments when he's not delivering a speech but he's watching parades or something like that, the mannerisms or the facial tics come out again.
Do you think he was actually salivating at any point while reviewing these young men? I mean, he doesn't drool out his mouth.
No.
Like, it's a very intense concentration.
Yeah, there are a lot of scenes of he'll be presented with a large group of men, of soldiers or workers or something like that, and he inspects them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember which group it was where he was really intensely inspecting them. He was just standing. He had rows of people lined up in military formation before him, and he was pacing in front of them and staring like not only at those in the first row, but several rows back and really concentrating.
Yeah.
And it looked like it was framed as such that he both had a lot of thoughts about how they were arranging themselves, and those were good thoughts. I also liked the I guess the filmmaker implying that Hitler was watching all events like a hawk when there would be a like a parade or something like that, and of course she would film a lot of people goose stepping in brown or black uniforms, and then it would just cut to Hitler squinting like a hawk.
Yes, exactly. I was about to say that, because when there's that scene of all the workers announcing where in Germany they're from, periodically it just sort of flicks back for a second with like the close-up of Hitler's eyes unblinking.
Yeah.
Eagle-eyed.
Yeah, that was very good. I did appreciate there was a scene where first they were showing off horses running really, really fast to Hitler.
Yeah.
And then they had the military cars, and they were just effectively doing burnouts in these state-of-the-art military cars. Speaking of cars too, big shout out to Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, yeah.
The Hitlermobile had a very prominent Mercedes-Benz logo.
The sponsors of both the Nazis and this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things, actually, I've got 2 more sort of thoughts on Hitler's general presentation, or one maybe one sort of question and one thought. Like, what did you make of his voice? Because I must say I was actually I was more impressed than I expected to be by his voice. Like, I really wouldn't have been surprised had it been very high-pitched and girly. And I'd sort of heard Hitler's voice before, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. But I thought I've
never sat down
dramatic,
for 2 hours and absorbed Nazi propaganda like this before.
He did have very impressive delivery, and particularly in the way that he always... I'm not sure if there's just an incident of German grammatical structure or it was conscious, but like he would finish a lot of sort of sentences with Deutschland in a very sort of like, I don't know, almost like his voice was about to give out. He had so much passion in it.
he was very passionate, very shouty, but extremely passionate. And he was so. While I was watching this, my wife got home and and speaks German and had some questions about what I was watching. But she witnessed Goebbels speaking and did comment that Goebbels' German is very, very nice. Some aspect of the accent, she said, was surprised her at how pleasant it was.
Yeah, well, he does have a pleasant voice. I mean, he had the pleasantest voice out of all of the speakers. I didn't like Hess's voice much.
No, Hess had the best Hiles, but he was otherwise uninspiring with his voice.
And I think Hess...
I also do say this, for anyone listening, I don't speak German. Just through subtitles.
No, neither do I. I mean, I studied it without profit at school, but no, it was all through subtitles. We're not German experts you're talking to here. I found at the end, Hess did a particularly impressive Heil. I think it might have been the final speech of the film. And he sort of turns in very dramatic fashion away from the camera and at the
towards Hitler.
Yeah, with finishing some grand peroration, and he's this really almost again his voice sort of giving out. He's like Sieg Heil.
Yeah, he was really screaming that. Yeah, that was
moving.
Very passionate deliveries. Yeah, there's certainly a tenor of delivery at the Sixth Party Congress. It's all emotion all the time. It wasn't a very subtle movement, was it? Nazism.
No, that's probably not what you. That's not the word.
They were doing 100 k's an hour the entire time.
I mean, as Walter Pater once said of the quality that a good short story should have, it burnt like a intense gem-like flame.
What was I actually answering a question you asked 15 minutes ago. So the other scene. So my two favorite scenes were, one, the scene I enjoyed the most was all of the headshots of the various workers saying where they were from. But the most impressive, I think, was it was a funeral or a commemoration for Hindenburg, the former president. And it's a huge field full of soldiers in just this perfect grid, and walking between them are Hitler and two other people, and they go to pay respects to Hindenburg either at his grave or a memorial, and it's just a huge swastika, really big swastika.
Yeah, did you think
I'm not joking when I say basically everything has a swastika on it.
Did you get the feel? I got the feeling as the film progressed that the swastikas just got bigger and bigger. In the last 15 minutes, they're standing before an extraordinarily large swastika. And yet we're recording this at the time of the Republican presidential primary, which I'm paying some attention to, but you don't get that just size and scale of branding at any of these political events.
No, you get... So I'm not paying attention to the primary, but I would assume there are a lot of American flags, but do they have an American flag as big as the Imperial Eagle and swastika at that? There was that nighttime. They had a few nighttime.
Oh, the fireworks. You just remember the fireworks.
But yeah, there was one with fireworks and lots of soldiers. I think this was Speer's Sea of Flags, Zeppelin of Lights. And there were so many flags with swastikas on them that you couldn't see the people holding it. It was just this sea of flags.
Yeah.
And there was a gigantic illuminated eagle with a gigantic illuminated swastika before these crowds. They picked their symbol and then went for repetition. You just repeat it enough.
Just
emboss it into people's minds.
Through the repetition and the sheer size of them, you really did have the people actually subsumed by the iconography.
One striking thing, actually, um, particularly the daytime motorcades.
Mm.
Particularly I think the first motorcade, the one that took Hitler from landing his plane through the town of Nuremberg,
Yep.
is how beautiful the old architecture of Germany was.
Yes.
Because I haven't been to Germany very often, but quite often my impression is that many of the buildings feel quite new. There's certainly old architecture, but there's a lot of new architecture because it was bombed so heavily. And so it was actually nice to see what Germany was.
It would.
It might like a lot of what I thought was, oh, this looks like Prague, because
Yeah.
Prague just wasn't bombed to nearly the same extent.
It would have been
But
it would have been really funny at the time, like attending that sort of rally and thinking about how great it was for Germany to have its rebirth, and if they could just like flash forward like 13 years and everything has been destroyed, like that was the culmination of Hitler's reign, was just being fucking wiped off the map.
Yeah, yeah. One thing I was very impressed by, actually, was the soldiers when they're goose stepping. Quite a few of them will be hiling and will just hold that position for such a long time.
Yeah, that's actually a good
They're
point.
just must have crazy anterior delt gains on one side, on their right side, really disproportionate shoulders.
Yeah,
They've just got their big veiny hiling shoulder, and then their small, flaccid left non-hiling shoulder.
One unexplored area of propaganda, I'm morally sure that it exists, is like Nazis working out. Like I feel like that was an unexplored area.
Must exist.
Yeah, it really must exist. Oh, then again, I mean, we haven't yet watched Leni Riefenstahl's other classic, Olympia, about the 1936 games. So that would probably have a lot of German athletes working out.
I wonder though, because on one hand, of course, this film is obsessed with with the human form in motion, and fascist aesthetics that certainly appreciate powerful bodies. At the same time, I wonder whether the worship of the folk would get in the way of appreciating movement purely for the purpose of getting your muscles to be larger, whether that'd be seen as degenerate.
Yeah.
Whether, I mean, I guess you could have someone hit the gym really, really hard and then just be filmed chopping wood or, I don't know, herding sheep or something like that. And that would marry the folkish elements, the folkish myth, with big bulging biceps. You would get that perfect marriage of aesthetics and mythology.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what their view of just going to the gym to consume resources would be.
No, I think
that strikes me as a very capitalist pursuit.
Yeah, and
of just
too individualistic,
pure mindless consumption.
Too individualistic and too capitalist, probably. Yeah. What else do we need to talk about in this film? This film is definitely worth watching, but it's also, in a way, hard to describe because not that much happens. I mean, like this.
I found it exhausting to watch. Again, it might just be a stamina thing in that I watch so few films and get quite bored by films.
Yeah.
That watching 2 hours of basically parades and fascist speeches does get pretty tiring pretty quickly.
Especially because like there's parts of the film where there's like 5 to 10 minutes unbroken at a stretch of just watching people march. It's like, why am I
and then
spending
that
my
will
time
alternate with 5 to 10 minutes of just straight speeches.
Yeah. No,
and barely edited speeches as well. It's not YouTube jump cuts just to the best bits. It's just some Nazi functionary talking about how Hitler is guaranteeing the law, how Hitler is the law. So I guess some of the speeches were sort of interesting from the perspective of menace, knowing where this will lead.
Yeah.
But there wasn't actually that much of that either.
Yeah, I didn't find the film particularly menacing. I mean,
I don't know, particularly when you had the SS officers marching before Hitler. I found that certainly had a lot of menace.
I think I don't know. Maybe I'm just so overlaid with millennial irony or something like that. But it's so hard for me to take it seriously. Like it's so camp. It's so gay.
It is very camp.
Yeah. Like
I wonder how much of that is, as you mentioned, because the director is a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would be interested to watch more of her films.
So it's a I don't know, a presumably heterosexual female view of the male form.
Yes. I don't actually know if she was a heterosexual, but it's something
I
we
think
can
so. I think she had a husband, at least.
That'd be so weird if your wife was making these films.
I mean, presumably her husband was also a Nazi, and so he thought it was pretty cool.
Jesus.
Let's have a look.
Wait, Jesus Christ. She only died in 2003 at age 101.
She was 101 when she died.
Good God.
She was pretty hot when she was younger as well.
More to the point.
Importantly, she does pass the physiognomy check.
Yeah, which Hitler really doesn't. I mean, Hitler really is...
he's very uninspiring.
That's also something I don't get. Like he put a lot of thought into
Hess had a bad voice, but Hess did have a big square jaw.
Yeah, I guess so. I found Hess underwhelming. He had a square jaw, I guess, but but he had a bit of a soft face, I thought, or a not threatening face. Like I find the face of Himmler quite threatening in a creepy bureaucrat kind of way, like a real sort of textbook banality.
Himmler looks like the sort of bureaucrat in a Kafka novel who would sentence you to death.
Yeah,
by 200 people removed.
I'm just googling Hess now, though. He did have a very strong brow.
A warrior skull, you might say.
Like, I wonder why Hitler didn't put more of an effort into his appearance, because he's clearly put a lot of effort into his gestures and his presentation generally, but he doesn't look like he worked out much.
If he looks maxed, he would have won the war. I just think the Soviet Union would have crumbled in a matter of days if Hitler had just been doing his mewing exercises, if he'd been jelking, if he'd been bone smashing, if he'd been skin maxing, if he'd been hair maxing.
How the hell do you hair max?
They would have won. Hair max by like smearing minoxidil on your scalp. If there is like any part of your body can be maxed.
Yeah.
It's a lesson I've learned from spending time on LooksMax forums, which Hitler should have done.
Yeah, he really should have done it.
Granted, they did have very, very impressive physical specimens for not extras, for the non-named blonde, square-jawed, squinty-eyed, presumably blue-eyed cast members. Those people were very impressive from a physiognomic standpoint.
Yeah. I wonder what the casting sort of. I mean, I guess these. How many of these scenes are authentic, or how much of the footage is actually authentic? I mean, is it all authentic? And it was this sort of well scripted. She's just done really good camera work. I mean, I would assume, like, for instance, I'm sure she didn't actually have a camera on Hitler's plane as he flew over the clouds. But, like, I just wonder how much of this was done retroactively and how much was actually authentic. This is how it happened.
It's hard to say because certain things would be very, very hard to fake, or at least very expensive, like the Sea of Flags or some of the speeches. Certain things like the group songs, I anticipate were probably not spontaneous.
Yeah.
That was probably scripted just because the voices are just too much in unison. It sounds too good. Like, if you hear a crowd of people singing, granted, your average group of people at the MCG on a Saturday night aren't well-drilled SA or SS members, but still, it's very hard to make out individual words, whereas with these group songs, the enunciation was perfect, and I find it hard to believe that that would have happened. And also, in each shot, there are only a handful of people.
Yeah, so I've got up the Wikipedia article talking about the filming of it. And apparently, it was actually the rally was almost planned around the film as well. So they like so Spear apparently pits were dug in front of the speaker's platform so Riefenstahl could get the camera angles she wanted, and tracks were laid so that the cameraman could get traveling shots of the crowd. Uh,
Mm, mm.
When rough cuts were not up to par, major party leaders and high ranking public officials reenacted their speeches in a studio for her. There we go. 61 hours of film was cut into two.
The profound theatricality of the Nazi regime.
Yeah.
It was really a marketing first approach to totalitarian government.
Yeah, it's a very it is. I think it's one of the striking things about it is just like how recognizably modern it is. Not like how much of the political theatrics, but also like how much of almost like advertising sort of production techniques were used. Like, and if you hadn't seen any of this stuff before and seeing all of this sort of stuff for the first time, or all these techniques used for the first time, it really would have been pretty jaw dropping.
It is also just very, very darkly amusing the extent to which modern Western society is indebted to Nazi Germany in so many things we do. So in much legal discourse, the debt owed to Carl Schmitt, in much continental philosophical masturbation at university liberal arts departments is owed to Martin Heidegger, and how much of our political communication is owed to people like Leni Riefenstahl or to Goebbels.
Yeah, plus also, how much of the how many of the developments in sort of nuclear physics, as well as hiding the fact that the world is secretly flat. I mean, Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, that was the Nazis.
Pretty clever.
At the same time, hiding the fact that the Earth is flat and also hiding Agatha from us.
I got one of those references.
The Earth is hollow. We have a hollow flat Earth. It's like a Kit Kat.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, that's it. This film is definitely worth watching, but in a way, I was a little bit disappointed. I was expecting it to have I don't know. I was expecting it to have a bit more in the way of story rather than just scene after scene of rallies and men marching. So I probably wouldn't be rushing back to rewatch this one. And I think to your point before, you're saying like, oh, maybe I just don't have the stamina for films. I watch a lot of films and a lot of television, and I got pretty bored. I mean, I was rewatching it, but I watched it in two sittings, one of which finished an hour and a half ago.
With your
as my baby was snoring on my chest.
Were you holding his eyelids open to make sure that he could see
I did
every single frame of the Triumph of the Will?
I did become a little bit self-conscious last night because my wife had gone to bed, and baby was sort of sleeping on me as I was sitting in the recliner watching Triumph of the Will, but I sort of left the door open and it was really loud and there was so many like, Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler! I mean, I wasn't self-conscious enough to turn it down, but I was a bit self-conscious.
Your neighbours could hear it.
Psychopath.
Can you imagine your neighbours trying to sleep hearing that through the wall?
Yeah.
Hess screaming Sieg Heil. Do you think Ed's a Nazi?
Oh, he didn't look like a Nazi mowing the lawn in his t-shirt, but now I'm reconsidering.
I mean, he was doing it with his left hand, and his right hand was held skyward.
Yeah. Imagine mowing the lawn while trying to goose step with
Hiling the entire time.
God, that'd be hard.
Giving all of your neighbours the good old Roman salute.
All right.
Yeah, you'd be a real nuisance. I think documentary filmmaking probably has gone through a learning process since The Triumph of the Will was first released. Because many documentary films, at least the more modern ones that I've seen, do have some sort of narrative hook to pull the viewer through them. And this film really did lack that. It has a lot of very, very striking images,
Mm.
but it's tiring. I do remember for the first 20 minutes or so, I was enjoying myself.
Yeah.
That how striking the imagery was, the how emotionally stirring the soundtrack is, as well as just the first time Hitler just appeared on screen, they're smiling, I just burst out laughing. Because there is still, at least to me, there is shock value in seeing something that is just so unashamedly all about Hitler. And Hitler starring as himself as the main character of a film was very, very funny. The first time I was really hit with the reality of, oh yeah, this was like a 1934, 1935 Nazi propaganda film.
Mm.
But that wasn't enough to sustain me through 2 hours.
No.
That wore off. I didn't burst out laughing any more times when I saw Hitler. I did start laughing at the the I'm from Silesia, I'm from Pomerania part. That was very, very good.
Like, all right. They all have such funny voices as well.
Yeah, they all said it in a very funny way. It makes you realize how slick and well produced film and advertising, etc., are now. Because of course, when you hear people talk in real life, almost no one has this perfectly telegenic voice.
Yeah.
But and this film reflects that. Like, they probably just sound like normal people, but we're so conditioned to expect people on a screen to sound perfect that they come across as having really, really amusing voices. Nonetheless, I still thought they had really funny voices.
They're really funny voices, and I think a thought that kept just coming back to me is just how strange Germans are. Like, they're really weird people. And also, I was a little bit... what it really made me want was a triumph of the will equivalent about fascist Italy. But I suspect that the Italians simply aren't organized enough to have pulled off an equivalent sort of a cinematic spectacle.
Look, that would be concordant with my rude stereotypes about Italy. just as the triumph of the will is concordant with my stereotypes about Germany.
Yeah. Yes. I like it how you actually prefaced that by saying my rude stereotypes, whereas I just asserted it. Germans are weird. Italians are incompetent.
No, none of them approach the primordial magnificence of the Australian.
I know. Yes, especially if you could see the outfit I'm wearing. I'm wearing this stained Santa Claus t-shirt in my shabby little office.
No, it's the beauty of the Australian accent that you can sound good-natured. People can find how you speak fascinating, but no one will ever take you remotely seriously.
No. I've got the Wikipedia article up, and I am impressed that it won a few international awards, including the gold medal at the 1935 Venice Biennale, but also the Grand Prix at the 1937 World Exhibition in Paris. 1937. Like, pretty soon before the war. And they're like, all these Frenchmen are like, yeah, that was awesome. Have a gold medal.
Yeah, well, I mean, plenty of Frenchmen were okay
that's
with
true.
the Nazi occupation.
Yeah, that's true. But apparently, according to this article, it says that it actually wasn't. It wasn't that widely used for propaganda purposes. It seems to have been more aimed at like elite artsy types.
It's quite funny because at least in Australian universities, so much of as much as I recoil from the term, I guess the self-described intellectual class is very left-leaning. It's funny looking back at a time when a significant portion of that group of people were not only right-leaning, but were fascists.
Yeah.
They took a look at the triumph of the will and thought, yeah, that's really good stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're already socialists, it doesn't take that much to become a national socialist.
So, yeah, a stronger spined version.
Yes, exactly. Do we have anything else useful to say about this film? I honestly don't.
No, it's hard. It's hard to talk about this one at length because I guess the parts of the film that are fun are just letting the spectacle of it wash over you,
Yeah.
and that's something that is necessarily hard to convey in speech.
Yeah.
You know, I can talk about how there are just endless scenes of powerful looking men marching, or powerful looking men and good looking women being very obviously excited about seeing Hitler,
Mm.
or little cherub blonde children with little pudgy cheeks and big eyes, grinning and hiling because Hitler's just gone past in his car. The close-ups of children actually were used to good and comical effect. It's just so good seeing a filmmaker use a technique in such a way that you just immediately think, I know what you're doing. You're showing me the beautiful children who are very pleased about seeing their wonderful leader.
Yeah, yeah.
Just picking the most photogenic children that they could find.
It's a remarkably unsubtle film.
Yeah, Germany really isn't a place of much subtlety. They're quite a maximalist people in many ways.
Yeah, you reminded me before though of like just one scene I don't think we talked about. Well, not even a scene, just like a particular shot at the start of the film when Hitler's magical bird plane is arriving. Like there's this shot of taken from the plane, and you can see like the shadow of the plane like on the ground passing over the street. So you got like, and it also sort of leans into this impression of like Hitler as this soaring eagle who then has his eye on everything for the rest of the film.
Yeah, the symbolism is quite special.
A man who misses nothing.
So profoundly unsubtle.
Yeah.
The cross-shaped shadow of Hitler's plane impresses itself upon the land of Germany. Yeah, it's seeing this made me both want to and not want to watch Olympia. Because how long is Olympia?
I seem to recall it's a pretty similar length.
Is it also 2 hours? 3.5 hours?
Oh, no.
Wait. No. This is Olympia Part 2, Festival of Beauty. True to its... Oh, no, that also is... Wait, there are 2 parts of Olympia.
Oh, okay. I definitely haven't seen them all.
Okay, so 226 minutes. Okay, that's... I don't know if I could be fucked.
Yeah. I think...
I don't know if I could be bothered.
Yeah, I mean, I will be bothered. I'll watch it in a few late night sittings. I mean, I recently... Because I've got a 12-week-old baby, and sleeping can be a bit of an issue. So recently, over several nights, I worked through the Godfather trilogy, which all up is probably only 7 or 8 hours. But I feel like Olympia is probably not a film I can watch all at once, but it could make for some profitable viewing between the hours of 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. It's working through it.
Yeah, just to really implant the imagery in your son's mind at a young, impressionable age. Just to impose an appreciation for clean, powerful aesthetics.
All right.
Yeah. This episode is going to be a short one.
Yeah.
Like, what else can you say? Like, all of the funny moments that we haven't mentioned are really just they're variations on the theme of the funny moments we have mentioned.
There's not that much to say.
And by the end of it, I was zoning out as well.
Yeah.
Because it ends with so many speeches. The speeches are the worst bit.
Yeah, the speeches aren't great. I guess also because the content of the speeches is really not interesting. I mean, if you have a passing familiarity with Nazism or fascism, you kind of know what they're going to say, and there's no surprises. And also, I guess, given that we know how bad the Nazis were, I guess it is a little bit disappointing you don't hear any of the highly racial or that much of the highly racialized rhetoric. I mean, they do.
Yeah, I only recall one mention of
race.
keeping the race pure.
Yeah, and there's one reference to like keeping the race pure, and also how the most pure amongst them, presumably the 750,000 who were gathered there at Nuremberg, have found themselves as the natural leaders of the rest of the people. Like they've sort of naturally risen to the top, but they don't really, they don't really dwell on the issue or say anything particularly. I mean, I guess if you didn't really know that much, I'll put it this way. I think you could be forgiven if you didn't have any other context. You could be forgiven for thinking this film was simply fascist rather than like race science Nazi. Yeah.
Yeah. I probably won't be watching it again. I don't appreciate film in the same way that you do.
I don't think I appreciate it that much. I just watched a lot more of it than you do. I mean, and I mean, I don't really have. I'm sure there are probably many podcasts out there that delve into the specifics of this shot and that shot and what innovation. But I felt about it the same way I feel about Citizen Kane, which so many lists sort of say is like, oh, this is like the greatest film of all time, and it is unimaginably boring. But I think maybe if you were watching it for the first time, it would be like really dramatic, and we've absorbed so much of all these cinematic techniques that we don't know what it was like to see them for the first time. But yeah, I think you'd have to be a bit of a film purist to rewatch A Triumph of the Will. But I sort of feel I owe it to myself to watch Olympia, so I will do so. But I doubt we'll do a podcast on it.
I don't know if I can be
unless it surprises me by being really funny. But I don't know. The Germans aren't that funny, or they're not that intentionally funny. They're unintentionally funny, but
no, at least the Germans I know have an extremely dry, understated sense of humor, which I find very, very funny.
Yes, but that's true.
It was definitely not in evidence in Triumph of the Will.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I don't have more to say.
That's all I got.
What have I got to say? Buy copies of Tower. Buy my book. It's the best book in the world. Best book in human history. There's just nothing else like it. It's going to be remembered in thousands of years. And you could be at ground zero
in this,
or at least a few months after release, depending on when you listen to this.
In the same way that I was saying that it's impossible for us to recapture the brilliance of Triumph of the Will as it was first experienced. You can experience the dramatic original flourishes of Jack's book for the first time. You can be amongst the elite who were there when artistic history was first made.
That's a perfect way to end this episode.
Indeed.
There's nothing I want associated with my book more than Nazi propaganda films. The two go together wonderfully. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
See you next time. I'm trying to remember what we've got next. Oh no, we've got the Tate Bible next. You didn't have to read the Tate Bible. I finished it today.
Wait, is that what, by Andrew Tate or something?
Well, it's by a guy called G. Slim, who's an aficionado of Andrew Tate's, who collected Tate's knowledge and put it in a book, and then Andrew Tate put his name on it. So it's a co-authorship, Andrew Tate and G. Slim.
Yeah, I was about to ask you what knowledge Andrew Tate has to impart, but I guess I'll wait for the episode.
Yeah, we will distill it for you. We'll distill it for the masses. All right, thanks for listening.